Very pleased to welcome Kevin Keatts to the show, NC State head men's basketball coach. He just finished up his third season in Raleigh. And Coach, you've done there in a short amount of time what you've done everywhere, and that is win. 3 straight 20-win seasons, all of the records and championships that you accumulated previously at UNC Wilmington is well documented at this point. You, of course, were on that national championship winning staff and team at Louisville back in 2013. So your coaching successes are obviously well documented at this point, but I was pleased to have you on the show. I always appreciate how you do your job. You do it with integrity. You do it with passion and energy. And I often share this. Every time I have an NC State game, Coach, you're rarely ever not smiling. You've got like this positivity and joy that everybody sees. I've always appreciated that. So, well, obviously wanted to have you on. It's good to see you. It's been a while, and thanks so much.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate you saying those things, and you're right, man. I try to smile as much as I can. We got a lot of crazy stuff going on. It's going to be, plenty of time for us to frown a little bit. And man, I'm honored to be on with you two guys, man. Two sharp guys, two guys who, value dressing and look good. I mean, so I'm good, man. This is my world right here. I'm looking at, I think I told you guys, I'm looking at your background, man. Look like you guys are making a great living. I like that part about it, and just excited to be on.
Hey, I can't speak for Chris, but I don't have the cherry blazer. I don't have that red blazer in my wardrobe. I don't have that.
We can get you one of those. I'm just not sure you're going to wear it. That's all.
All right, Coach, you've mentioned this a few times this summer. There really has been no playbook for a summer like this. So what has been that most meaningful or impactful adjustment you've had to make in regards to running a basketball program this summer?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we've all, and not just me, coaches around the country, administrators, players, I think we've all had to be open-minded because our situation is completely different. You think back to March 12th, when we found out that our season was over, and then shortly after that, the NCAA wasn't going to happen. Nothing has been normal. Everything's been different. We went automatically to Zoom, and then going into the summer, we've been doing Zoom. And then finally, I was fortunate enough to get my players back on campus where I could just see them. And it's been a difficult time. But for the most part, I think you have to be ready to adjust to these situations. And we're still learning. I know that sounds crazy because it's 5 or 6 months later. But as you know, we're still learning, and we're going to continue to learn. But I'm excited that I feel like our team and our players and our staff has really adapted to the situation.
What's an example of that, the learning? I'm sure you've had many conversations with whether it's your family or coaching peers or players. What's something where you guys have kind of collectively said, all right, maybe we do this or maybe we do that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that we went entirely online for academics. Typically our guys will have some in-person classes, and we may have 1 or 2 online classes. We've had to go strictly with that. And by doing that, we wanted to maintain the integrity of the school and our guys to understand how important it is to take care of their academics and still meet with tutors and have conferences with our coaches and also be online and doing the right thing. And then, I've got 5 incoming freshmen. Once they graduated and everything was good from high school, we had to take it to another level because I typically would have 4 or 5 weeks to work with them in summer one. We didn't. So we were doing a lot of our stuff over Zoom as far as chalk talk and making sure they pick up plays just so they wouldn't be so far behind.
Kevin, I'm curious because you've done your coaching thing the right way. I mean, you've been at almost every step along the process. And I'm curious how the non-basketball element to your job now, and even when you were a head coach at Wilmington, I'm sure the non-basketball related things are probably even bigger than they were at Wilmington. Does that turn you off about the job? I assume you got into this to be a basketball coach, and there's a lot, I think people don't realize, there's a lot involved with being a coach at your level now that has nothing to do with X's and O's. What prepared you for that side of it, and does it turn you off sometimes about the job?
Yeah, Chris, that's a great question. I don't know that I got into it just for the basketball part of it. I like the excitement of helping guys get through any type of situation. And so, I'll go back and, this obviously having some military background, you know, uh, my days at Hargrave Military Academy, and that was 10 years and two different stints. Actually, it was 12. And it prepared me for everything that I may see moving forward as becoming a Division I head coach. I had to drive the bus. We had to wash the clothes. We did everything that you could imagine doing. But that stuff made me, it humbles you and understands that, yeah, I'm in a situation now where we're fortunate enough to take private planes, but that's not a situation that I came from. And so one of the things that we worked for is we just work hard trying to build the entire man and letting guys know that the real life is not sometime what you get in college and how you're treated as a college athlete. And so one of the things that I've always talked about is if a kid leaves me and he's not academically stable and socially he's not ready to go into the world, and the only thing that he got from our program is being a basketball player, then I think I failed as a coach. Because I want these guys to be a good father. I want them to be a good husband. I want them to be ambassadors around the community and do the right stuff. And so one of the things I've always told those guys is I kind of judge you not just on your basketball. I know you can play. I wouldn't recruit you, but what type of person are you? How do you affect somebody else's life? Do you give back? If you've got a younger brother or sister, what type of role model are you for those guys? And by me doing so, I think it's helped produce a lot of guys who are able to go out and make it in society.
I'm glad you started to go into that, and I think that ties into something you've said a lot. Everybody kind of certainly makes a point about your introductory press conference at NC State. Hey, Kevin Keatts is a winner, but
Yeah.
you've elaborated on that over the years. It's beyond just winning games. It's can we win recruiting battles? Can I set these players up for wins or success beyond basketball? Pertaining to what you just said there. I think that comes from your competitive spirit. Why do you have that? Where does that come from? Where was that kind of really competitive spirit born?
Yeah, I didn't. It's weird, Kevin. You said when I said that at the press conference, I never knew that would take off like that. I've actually had to trademark that just to make sure, not to make money off of it, just to make sure it didn't end up on the wrong products. Kevin Keatts is a winner, if you know what I mean. I don't want it on some things. But I think it comes from my mother and father. They have been always hard workers. My dad was a masonry instructor at Amherst County High School. I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia. And, on the weekends, he'd get me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and we would go and we would do masonry. And I was a laborer. I mixed the mortar. I bought the bricks. I bought the blocks. And those type of things has kind of helped me along the way just to stay humble and understand. I never grew up with a silver spoon. And so everything that I've kind of gotten, it's because I worked hard. And I want our guys to do the same thing. It's a little tougher. I mean, my wife and I, we have this conversation all the time about our kids. And we try to figure out, man, what can we pull back? Because at times we feel like, and I know you guys go through this also, you feel like you've given your children too much because you are in a better situation than they were financially growing up. And then you got to find a mixture of what to give, what to pull back, because you want them to grow up humble and understand how to appreciate things more.
Yeah. Can you teach that? Like, I think every coach is looking for a guy who's a quote unquote winner. And for some guys, it's innate. I wonder if you can teach that. Like, who are the winners you've been around who, perhaps developed that? Who are the natural winners that you've been around?
Yeah, Chris, God, man, you guys are making great questions and statements. Winners are hard and leaders are hard, and especially with today's time. If you talk to any coach right now, they'll probably tell you that the leaders on the team is probably the coaching staff. And I think it starts with recruiting. You got to go out there. AAU has kind of changed the game a little bit. I really like AAU, but it's tough because a guy may play a game at 9 o'clock and he lose, and then at 11 o'clock he lose. And And so I think it teaches them the wrong ways. That being said, I try to find guys and identify guys who win state championships, guys who win in AAU, guys who are great teammates when they come off the floor. It's been hard lately to find some guys who are competitors like that. If you ask for example, a guy who, when I went to Louisville, I don't know that there was a better leader than Peyton Siva. I mean, just tough, mentally tough, could take coaching, but also understood how to play, how to get everybody involved. He's probably one of the better ones that I've ever been around with the new age kids. I have to give him a lot of credit because he knew how to win. He knew how to motivate guys. He was a quarterback on the floor. He knew how, he played alongside some really good players and Russ Smith and Gorgie Dang and Luke Hancock. And, what was special about him is he knew how to get everybody involved and make everybody play at a high level.
I remember him, no doubt. He, of course, we've talked about that final Big East championship that Louisville won, and Peyton Siva was personally responsible for dismantling my Orange that night in Madison Square Garden. So, but hold on. So let's talk about that. When was the first time you spent 3 years at Louisville as an assistant? Yeah. Your reputation really grew there. When was the first time you met Rick Pitino?
Well, he wouldn't remember this, but I was at Hargrave, and it never came up when he hired me. I had a really good player named Lorenzo Wade that actually went to Louisville, and Coach don't remember this. We never talked about that, and so he came to my gym at Hargrave, and he recruited Lorenzo Wade. When we went through the hiring process, I didn't mention Lorenzo because I didn't know how their relationship went when they were there. But that being said, that was probably the first time that I met him. Came in, and obviously he was very focused, knew what he wanted. As you know, he's a great coach and demanded the room, and we had a great talk during that time. And then obviously I was fortunate enough that when that job opened up, he and I met. And it's weird because we really never talked about basketball. We talked more about life. I learned a lot more about him through our conversations when we were talking about the job opposed to what we would do X and O wise.
And let me ask you this then, because of course you learned a lot, and you've documented this over the years that there were so many little details about coaching you learned there. But how about this one? Because Rick kind of demands a lot of his players and coaches. What's an example of a time where he, whether it was indirectly or directly, kind of challenged you to grow as a coach? Oh, yeah. What's an example of that?
Well, I'll give you an example. When we first got there, I remember like it was yesterday. I think I was telling somebody the story the other day. And so we're in practice. We had an entirely new staff. Richard Pitino, Joaquin Jones, who Joaquin was the head coach at Cal, and then obviously myself coming from the prep world. Well, Joaquin and I, we were very new. Richard obviously had been around his dad before. We're in practice, and we have a great practice. I mean, unbelievable practice. Guys are playing hard. They're getting after it. And so we're excited after practice, like, man, we got a chance to be really good. So Coach, he summons for Joaquin and myself to come to his office. And I'm saying, man, he's going to tell us, man, what a great team that we have. And so we come up in there and, we're feeling good. It's a great practice. And he really jumps into us. He gets on us pretty good. And we like, well, what do we do? And basically we were too quiet in practice. I'm not a quiet guy, but here it's one of my first few practices with a Hall of Fame coach. I'm going to listen. I'm going to learn. And basically the message that he sent is, he loves to tell you, don't stand around like a mannequin. The message that he sent to me was, I hired you to do a job. I want you to be vocal. You have been a head coach before. I have one rule, is what he said, is if another coach is talking, I don't want you to interfere, but I want you to coach. I want you to be a voice. And then he left it with this. I don't hire assistant coaches. I hire future head coaches. And I thought that was great. From that point on, I think that helped me understand that, he looked at me as more than just a guy who was going to recruit players, but he wanted the total package. And I was on a Zoom call with a bunch of young coaches that are assistants right now. And the message that I told them is, you don't want to work for anybody who's going to put you in a box. If they're going to label you as a recruiter or you are just this X and O guy, I think you have to be able to do everything. And I think what I learned from him is to be well-rounded. You got to scout. You got to be able to recruit. You got to be able to develop. And I think that's where I grew as a coach. I came in with a lot of experience as a head coach, but understanding how hard you have to work, the attention to detail. We scouted like no other. And I think I learned a lot from that.
The way you play, did you play that way at Hargrave? Or how much of who you are now as a coach came from that experience?
Yeah, Chris, we played the way, and this is why I love the fact that I had the opportunity to go to Louisville. We played the exact same way. At Hargrave, we were averaging about 10 Division I guys. And in order for me in 40 minutes to be able to get them to be seen by the college coaches, we would have to put 5 guys on the floor to play as hard as they can and press, and then take them off the floor and then put 5 other guys in. And so we had that philosophy going in. When you look at some of the things we did at Louisville, I've added a couple press that we did at Louisville, even though we pressed at Hargrave. But most of us that was with Coach, we typically have our own offense. So my offense is kind of what I've developed over the years, just from Hargrave through Louisville, my days at Marshall, and, stuff that I've learned throughout the years. But it's a couple presses that, for example, the 2-2-1 press that Coach Pitino runs. It's a little different than most people would run, and that's one of the things I've taken from that program as far as the defense goes.
You're outlining here just what that program meant to you, Hargrave, and we're talking about this postgraduate military school. It's smack dab in the middle of Virginia, not far from where you grew up. So you've heard these names before, but yeah, the number, the volume of players, but under you, I think this list begins kind of about the time you arrived at Hargrave. The list of players that went on to play, we're talking the NBA, not just college basketball, is pretty profound here. David West, Josh Howard, Maurice Spates, Sam Young, P.J. Hairston, Luke Hancock. Those guys had great college careers. I'm sure you probably helped recruit Montrezl Harrell as well. Like, how did you do that? How did you build that consistently? Because it kind of started right when you arrived.
Yeah, our reputation was our biggest deal. Our sales pitch was, if you come here, you're gonna leave out better than you came. Meaning, some of the guys that at that time you could be a repeat senior, and some of those guys needed some academic work. Then you had some guys, for example, a guy like Luke Hancock, who was fully qualified, had over a 3.0, but he just was in a place that he didn't get that much exposure from basketball. And then you had guys who needed both. And one of the things that we told those guys is, when you come here, I want you to check your ego at the door. There are no superstars, but if we all work extremely hard, then you have an opportunity to play, number one, at college, and then put yourself in a position to play in the NBA. One of our guys, I know you guys, Joe Alexander, he was he played like a 6 or 7 man backup role, and he was a lottery pick from West Virginia. And so we had so many success stories that came through, guys that we haven't talked about is still in the league, like a guy like Mike Scott. Mike Scott wasn't even fortunate enough to play on his A-level AAU team, and he had a chance to make it. Luke Hancock is an unbelievable story. He had Division II offers coming out of high school, and he's the most outstanding player in the national championship game. So with so many guys, even though I felt like we taught those guys a lot, I learned so much from them. And that's why I tell people, when it comes to turning over roster, I've had success because typically at Hargrave, we're used to having a new team every year. I would have 13 new guys every year, and so I'm used to teaching in that manner.
An icon in not just college basketball passed away a few days ago. On August 30th, it was John Thompson. You've talked a little about him this week, but what is the image or the interaction or a game or a moment, something, when you hear John Thompson, where does your mind go?
Well, I grew up in Virginia, so automatically I know about the Allen Iverson whole situation, and with Coach Thompson, and I think he handled it the right way. When he had his couple troubles that he had at the bowling alley, and most people would have turned their back on a young man, and so that's just one story that I can relate to, because obviously being from Virginia. But, without a John Thompson, there's probably not a Kevin Keatts. And I say that because he's opened the doors for so many younger African-American coaches to have that opportunity. I tell coaches all the time when I'm going recruiting or whatever, I said, I don't want you ever to give me a player that I don't work hard for. I want to put the work in. But if I'm successful, there's an opportunity for you possibly to see yourself in this type of situation in the future. And what John Thompson has done for basketball in general has been outstanding. But when you think about every coach who's an African-American head coach, at some point we all looked up to John Thompson. And so sorry and sad to see him gone. We're going to definitely miss him. I have a great relationship with JT3 and, of course, Ronnie Thompson. And that family's been great for basketball.
Yeah. His pushes, his causes, Coach Thompson, away, outside of the basketball are legendary. And I wonder, especially given current events, what sense of responsibility you feel towards having those conversations with your players, and what the responsibility of a head coach is in respect to those types of off-court issues.
Yeah, as an African American head coach, I don't think necessarily that I've got to have to be the voice of everybody, but I think it's important that, number one, I show my players that I'm willing to fight for them. When we sit in their rooms and we sit in their living rooms and we talking to their families, we're not just asking the families to give us their child for basketball. It's everything in life. And, I'm a voice, and I want to be a positive voice just for my kids, for my own two kids who are 16 and 12, but also for my players, because I need to be a role model for them. And my role model is I want to support them. I want to be able to listen. I want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. And, I always tell everybody, I want them to be able to look back and say, man, this is what my college coach would have done, because they may be in that situation themselves. I think what's going on in the country, it's tough. When I was coming up, it was, the unfortunate thing, I went through the Rodney King stuff. And I've said a long time ago, some of the things that are happening now, it's a little surprising to me that they're still happening when we're in 2020. I've encouraged my guys to get out and vote. I think some people have taken that the wrong way. And what I mean by that is, when I say go vote, I don't care who you vote for, but you have to exercise your right to vote. And I think that's important. You think about when we all were in college, most guys they'll miss the rotation to vote because they're not old enough, and then they'll graduate when they're in college. Or, even when I was coming up in college, I never even thought about voting. So that's something that I think this generation can help make a difference in what's going on around the world.
All right, Coach, I've mentioned some of your prior stops in your coaching journey, not just at NC State, but UNC Wilmington. We've talked at depth here about Hargrave. I look at UNC Wilmington, I look at NC State, the years leading up to when you arrived. The contrast, of course, in success is different. Look, you won so many games and championships at UNC Wilmington, and you've won quite a bit at NC State already. How do you change mindsets effectively and genuinely? How do you get the buy-in effectively and genuinely, from players to do what you've done at those two places?
Well, every coach has a choice to make when they take over a program. And one of the choices is, do you try to wait a year or two to put your system in, or do you try to take the kids that's already on the roster and you say, you know what, they don't fit my system? In my case, I've decided to always go in and put my system in right away. And pretty much one of the secrets that I've had is we've gotten those guys in incredible shape. Though the teams that I may have inherited those first years, the first 1 or 2 years may not be as talented as the other teams in the league, we're in great shape. And so a lot of time that keeps us in the game. The other thing is I think coaches make a mistake when you take over a program and you say right away, these are not my guys. Well, they are because you took over a program. They're still in the program. You signed a contract. And so right away, I try to build a bond with the guys that's on the team. I try to get a bond where they trust me and I trust those guys. And, no matter where you go or whatever type of job you take, players don't want to lose, so they've got winning in them. They didn't actually accidentally become Division I guys. And so what I try to do is pull out that winning part of them to get them back in that situation where they believe in themselves.
You were a hot commodity at Wilmington. I mean, you were going to be a next big hire for some place. Why NC State?
Well, Chris, it's a great job, tremendous fan base. It's a great location for me. I've said this before. Even though I lived in Virginia, I really grew up as an NC State fan. I really did. I mean, Virginia.
Come on.
No,
You're saying that because you
no, I promise
Really?
you. Now, I was a Ralph Sampson fan.
Okay.
But I never was into Virginia like that. I really like Ralph Sampson. Even to this day, I like Ralph Sampson. He's a good dude. And when you think about this, Virginia Tech was kind of like, I want to say Metro, Atlantic 10. And so typically when you're a young kid, you go to the biggest schools and, the ACC and all that stuff. And I'm not that far. We're about 2:15 from my home here. So I really grew up. And some of my players, when we first started at Hargrave, ended up coming to NC State. Lorenzo Brown was one of them, did a tremendous job here. But it's close to my family. My wife was very supportive. Both of our parents still live in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's a great place to raise our kids. Our fan base is outstanding. I know sometimes they get a bad rap, but at the end of the day, I love the competitiveness about it. It has great tradition. It's a program that's won 2 national championships. It's a program that I thought that we could be really successful, and I'm really excited that I took the job.
Where'd you watch Jim Valvano, running around, right? Early 80s. Were you watching that one live? Where? I couldn't tell you where it was airing.
I don't know where I watched it, but I got Derek Wittenberg still working here, and he reminds me of that every other day. So you know that.
Yeah.
He tells me about it every other day. When you gonna win a national champ? I was like, Derek, don't you think every coach that's been here want one? We want one.
He loves talking about that title.
Yeah,
that story.
and I give him, because he's gonna swear up and down what a great pass. I was like, Derek, you've never had a positive assist to turnover ratio. It wasn't a pass. I said you missed so short, and luckily we got lucky in that situation. But no, that Jim Valvano video is still powerful today. Just what he did with that team, and you look at that team, and you go back and look at that team. That team wasn't a team that people had picked to win. They had a lot of good things happen for them, and they had some guys that believe, and they won a championship.
Coach, I'll pick the number 3. Anything more might be kind of excessive here. 3 most influential people in your career or even just throughout your life. Who are they and why?
Yeah, that's tough, man, because you're going to make me cut out a lot of people when you say 3.
The list can be as lengthy as you'd like it here.
Yeah, but you just put me in a bad situation, because I'm going to get a couple calls once this thing shows, and everybody's going to like, well, you don't believe I'm influential? So number 1, I'm going to start with, I'm going to make them one together, is my parents. My family and parents, and they've been so supportive of me. And neither one of my mother or father played athletics. They wasn't involved, but they were so supportive. I remember, I was the high school quarterback also, and the point guard on the basketball team. And I can't remember a time that they missed a game. They were so involved, even though they might not have known what was going on, but they were very supportive, and they've always raised me to work hard and earn everything that I've gotten. And so I'll say number one on that. This is a little different than most people say, influential. I'm going to say my wife. And here's why I say that. I've been married for 20 years, and she's been great. She humbles me. She's never going to let me think that I'm better than I am. She loves me. She does a great, tremendous job with my kids. I don't give her enough credit for what she does. It's tough being a coach's wife, as you guys know. So very supportive. I'm grateful. I wouldn't be here at NC State if it wasn't for the support that she's put into our family and making sure that the house would run the right way, even when I'm out doing what I'm doing, trying to, have a career in basketball. And then there's so many coaches. Of course, I've talked about Rick Pitino. You guys know not only me, just what he's done for a lot of coaches that have worked under him and will continue to do. And then I've got a high school coach, my football coach named John Walker, who has been so influential over the years. I learned from him. Wasn't a man of many words. He was just direct. He was a very good football coach. I've never told him this, but I've always admired him as a man and a person of the way he handled things, just in daily life. So he's been one of them. I work for a guy at Marshall named Greg White, who is unbelievable man, a great Christian man. If you guys haven't seen him, he'll spin the ball anywhere you want to on your hand. So, but it's so many people. I don't want to leave out. And for those who I left out, I want to thank you. And I didn't mean to leave you out intentionally, just so you know that.
What does I want to become as smart as you. So what do you do to broaden your mind outside of basketball? Are you a book reader? Are you a podcast guy, documentaries? What do you do?
No, I'm not a book reader. I need to get better at that. But here lately, what I've done is I'm a big fan of the game. And so I turn on the TV and I look for games. I don't care what type of games they are. I really like NBA. I'm into NBA now. It's so weird. It's almost like this is the first time I'm really learning about the NBA. And I know that sounds crazy. But when I watch games now, I watch them and I look at them at a different lens. I mean, those guys in the league are so skilled. And I knew that because they're pros. But now that I watch, and I guess because they've been in the bubble and I haven't had a chance to watch, when we say we're the best basketball in the world, it's the best basketball in the world. These guys are skilled. They're very talented. The other thing, Chris, I do, I've decided since probably March, I try to walk anywhere from 5 to 10 miles a day. Oh, wow. I try to get about 5 in the morning and then 5 late in the afternoon. And when I don't get that 5 or 10 miles, I'm kind of whacked out. It's like a weird day for me. But during that time, I walk, I clear my mind. I have a chance to think. Sometime I'll do recruiting. Sometime I'm talking to assistant coaches and everything else. But I do more of that stuff than anything. That's where I typically do all my thinking at.
What are the routes, or how many are we doing? Like 5 miles in the morning, 5 miles in the afternoon? Is it like 3 different trips? What's the route?
No, Kevin, it's 2 trips, and I try to get 5 in the morning and 5 in the evening. And sometimes, man, I fall short on it. I don't wear. If you guys look at me, I don't wear any type of jewelry. So my wife's bought me a Fitbit that I won't wear. So everything that it's recorded, I have an app called Pacer on my phone, and it stays in my pocket, and I pray that it's right because I go by it. It tells me how many steps I'm getting and how many miles I'm walking per day.
The step wars. Steps are a commodity these days. Those debates between people on who's got more steps, right? Like that's a big one. Coach, you've got to roll in a couple minutes here. I want to finish up on these last 2 notes then. So you referenced just the game of basketball. Who is the player in the league right now who leaves you in awe, or who you really admire watching?
So you're trying to start an argument again among my players because that's that my players are going to say, golly, coach, you could have said so and so. Look, LeBron James is really good, and I'm going to stick with that. I mean, he is so talented. And what makes him really good and what makes all of the greats so good is because most of the guys that you see that are really some of the best players that ever played a game, majority of those guys came in and like, for example, Kobe and the LeBrons, they were more athlete than player at the time. But when you look how over the years they've changed their game and, now they can score at all three different levels. I'm going to go with LeBron. I like his skill level. I like the fact that he can bring the ball up the court. He can run an offense. I don't know that we've seen anybody that size that can pass the ball as well since Magic. And so I'm going to go with LeBron. I'm going to say LeBron. My kids are probably going to kill me, because we're going to have a big debate about it. But it's hard to argue what the man has done in the league.
Coach, have you played more ping pong this summer than ever before?
No, less. As a matter of fact, I lost to my 16-year-old for the first time. And I guess if I'm going to lose a game, at least it can be to your son.
How?
Well,
How?
and look, Kev, I don't want to take away from his performance, but you think about this now. We were playing a game, and I was going halfway, and he got to 16, and I couldn't come back. And he started playing well. When he got to 16, he got to 21 before you knew it. And he throws the paddle down. He yells loud. My wife's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "This is what I do." Like, what do you mean, this is what I do? You never won a game before. This is what I do? I'm like, you serious?
I love it.
Right.
And he's hiding from me, Kev. Typical kid. He doesn't want to play again because he wants to live on that. I tweeted it out because I wanted to be the first to say it because I wanted to control the narrative because I knew if he tweeted it out, he was going to say something different.
Yeah.
You're never getting on that schedule again. I don't know if he's ever scheduling a dad ever get. Kevin Keatts, listen, this has been great. This has been a lot of fun, Coach. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. You got so much perspective and inspiration, obviously, to share all the time. So thanks so much for carving out some time to do this.
Man, listen, thank you guys. And look, we will get back to things being normal soon. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the sideline, guys. And thanks for all you do for basketball. And I really appreciate you guys.